Ukraine has been a geopolitical hotbed ever since it gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. It has been a point of interest for both Russia and the West, with Russia wanting to keep it within its sphere of influence and the West looking to integrate it into their sphere. One of the main questions that has been asked in recent years is whether Ukraine should be granted membership status to NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This video will explore Ukraine's current status with NATO, the pros and cons of Ukraine joining NATO, and what the future may hold for Ukraine's relationship with NATO. Ukraine's current status with NATO. Ukraine is not currently a member of NATO, but it has been a partner country since 1997. This means that Ukraine has been working with NATO to achieve common goals, such as developing democratic institutions, modernizing its armed forces, and contributing to international peacekeeping efforts. Ukraine has also contributed troops to NATO-led operations in Kosovo and Afghanistan. In 2014, Ukraine's relationship with NATO became more complicated when Russia annexed Crimea, which had previously been a part of Ukraine. Russia's actions were widely condemned by the international community, and NATO suspended all practical cooperation with Russia as a result. Since then, NATO has been working to provide support to Ukraine, both politically and militarily. In 2015, Ukraine and NATO signed a Comprehensive Assistance Package, CAP, which outlines a framework for cooperation between the two entities. The CAP includes support for defense reforms, military training and education, and the modernization of Ukraine's armed forces. Pros of Ukraine joining NATO. There are several arguments in favor of Ukraine joining NATO. First and foremost, it would provide Ukraine with a collective defense guarantee, which would deter Russia from further aggression. This is particularly important given Russia's annexation of Crimea and its ongoing support for separatist groups in eastern Ukraine. By joining NATO, Ukraine would be able to access the alliance's Article 5 provision, which states that an attack on one member is an attack on all members, and NATO would be obligated to come to Ukraine's defense. Joining NATO would also provide Ukraine with access to military technology and expertise. Ukraine's armed forces are currently in need of modernization, and NATO could provide the resources necessary to do so. Additionally, by integrating with NATO, Ukraine would be able to improve its interoperability with other NATO members, making it a more effective contributor to international peacekeeping efforts. Another benefit of Ukraine joining NATO would be increased stability in the region. Ukraine is currently in a precarious situation, with ongoing conflict in the east and the threat of further Russian aggression. By joining NATO, Ukraine would become a more stable partner in the region, and the alliance's presence would act as a deterrent to other potential aggressors. Cons of Ukraine joining NATO. Despite the potential benefits, there are also several arguments against Ukraine joining NATO. The most obvious concern is that it would further escalate tensions with Russia. Russia has already made it clear that it considers NATO expansion to be a threat to its security, and Ukraine's membership would be seen as a particularly provocative move. This could lead to further conflict and instability in the region. Another concern is that Ukraine's membership would not be universally supported within NATO itself. There are several NATO members, such as Germany and France, that are skeptical of further expansion. They argue that Ukraine's membership would not only be seen as a threat by Russia, but it would also strain NATO's resources and dilute its effectiveness. Additionally, there are concerns about corruption and political instability within Ukraine, which could undermine its ability to effectively contribute to the alliance. Finally, there are concerns that Ukraine's membership would not necessarily guarantee its security. NATO has already faced criticism for its inability to prevent Russian aggression in Ukraine despite its partnership with the country. Some argue that Russia may be emboldened by NATO's inclusion of Ukraine and may seek to escalate its aggression, potentially leading to a wider conflict. What the future holds for Ukraine's relationship with NATO. The future of Ukraine's relationship with NATO is uncertain. While there are certainly arguments in favor of Ukraine joining the alliance, there are also valid concerns that must be addressed. Ultimately, the decision will be up to both Ukraine and NATO. In recent years, Ukraine has made significant progress in its efforts to integrate with NATO. The country has enacted numerous defense reforms, increased its defense spending, and worked to improve its interoperability with NATO forces. These efforts have been recognized by NATO, and the alliance has provided significant support to Ukraine in its efforts. However, there are still many challenges that must be overcome. Corruption and political instability remain major concerns, as does the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine. Additionally, there are concerns about the level of support for Ukraine's membership within NATO itself. Moving forward, it will be important for Ukraine to continue to work towards its goal of NATO membership, while also addressing these concerns. NATO must also carefully consider the implications of Ukraine's membership, including the potential for further conflict with Russia. Ultimately, the decision of whether to grant Ukraine membership status will be a complex one, with significant implications for both Ukraine and NATO. Conclusion. Ukraine's relationship with NATO has been a complex and contentious issue for many years. While Ukraine is not currently a member of the alliance, it has been a partner country since 1997 and has worked closely with NATO on a variety of initiatives. However, recent events, including Russia's annexation of Crimea and ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine, have complicated the relationship. There are arguments both for and against Ukraine joining NATO. On the one hand, membership would provide Ukraine with a collective defense guarantee, access to military technology and expertise, and increased stability in the region. On the other hand, it could escalate tensions with Russia, strain NATO's resources, and not necessarily guarantee Ukraine's security. The future of Ukraine's relationship with NATO is uncertain, and there are many challenges that must be addressed before any decision can be made. Ultimately, it will be up to both Ukraine and NATO to carefully consider the implications of membership and work towards a mutually beneficial solution.